grief. Oh, come on, Charlie Brown.
There we go. Hey.
I love it.
Hello, Ishan.
Hello, Jeremy.
How are you, my friend?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. So good to reconnect with you over the past couple of weeks. Great to see your face right now. Excited to have you be on the OhHello platform. Excited to have you as a mentor. I have the pleasure of knowing who you are. Why don't you tell our audience that's either watching or listening who our guest of the OhHello Pod and Vod is right now? Who are you?
So I am Ishan Bhaumik. For those that don't know me, I worked with you at Tube Mogul, but we have kept in touch since then, and it's been many different stops on the way from since our Tube
Both of
Mogul
us.
days, and so I've gone and worked at a TV data startup and Sama TV. I've worked at co-founded my own data startup for a short amount of time. And from that, I've gone to the market research end of the marketing tech spectrum and worked in Simmons and MRI Simmons. And then most recently, I've worked in my current role, which is GFK. And that's a multinational consumer market research company that's in 67 countries and top line is $1 billion company. So from a very like a 9-person startup to very large companies, I've done a range of things in the marketing world.
Amazing. Yeah, you've got some great experience. You've worked at some awesome companies, and the global experience of being a partnership lead is really unique in comparison to what a lot of people have done within the marketing technology space. You're also a dad. You're a husband.
A Miami resident now.
So I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah.
From California to New York, down to Miami. You got to stop in Chicago again sometime.
Oh yeah, I love Chicago. I just need to visit in the summer because I've been in Chicago in the winter, and I've been in Boston for 6 years, and Chicago is colder and beat the pants off of Boston.
I, I'll we'll leave it at that. We will leave it at that. Not gonna fight over Chicago versus Boston. Both awesome markets, very similar weather. Would love to hear about what defines you, just in terms of what characterizes your skill set that you're going to be sharing with the OhHello community.
It's a great question, but it's one that I'm passionate about. I think passion is part of that. I think part of what people know me for is I feel really passionate about helping people. This is why I wanted to get involved. Whenever you pitched this, I couldn't click faster on becoming a mentee and giving back. I also think that you know the mentors that I've had have sometimes been informal, right? So a somewhat more categorized and more structured approach to mentorship is something that I wish I had, or I wish I had more of. Like, for example, when I worked at Microsoft, there was a pretty structured mentor mentee program, and that was something that I was fortunate to have. But since then, it's been kind of less formal, and I'd love to introduce that to a lot of folks that are needing that today. Oh, what else makes me who I am? I love I do love knowledge and data, and that's why I think when I got the opportunity at TubeMogul, which was my first gig in the data side of this marketing business, I really I was inspired to learn as much as possible, and so I learned everything I could as much as possible about the data industry. And even comes today, I'm learning constantly about clean rooms, and we're in a very multi-scale project about that. And it's continually fascinating. It's something that I think I have a kind of a broad-based generalist skill set, and I think that are a number of specialists at my company, but there could be more generalists, and I think that's a very important skill set to have. So I would say that I think I'm good at being a kind of like a generalist with specialist tendencies.
I respect that. Having worked with each other, yeah, that's pretty valid and accurate. What would you tell your younger self as someone who I consider you an academic. You've also have worked really hard to get to where you are. When you look back, and we're at the same age and point in life, when you look back, and what would you tell your younger self? What would you tell 25, 35-year-old Ishan?
I think back then, and this is a philosophy that I'd love to dig deeper on.
Please.
I was, I was, I'm a little risk averse. I wouldn't like to say that I am, but this is why I kind of jumped into being a co-founder, because I was so paranoid and terrified of taking risks. And I think that comes a little with like kind of like an academic background. Like, my background, and that uh, getting straight A's was a mandatory, right? So what what does that what does that produce as far as a career? Well, I'll tell you that there's pros and cons, man. So the pros were like, I got great experience in academics in my resume, right? But then the cons was, I think it created a bit of risk averseness in my career that I don't know if it was a pro, right? When you're going to school, for example, and you're trying to get 9 out of 10, or you're trying to get A's, right? And for me, it was like A's or bust, especially in my family. I don't know if that prepares you for the real world, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you're getting 9 out of 10 sales calls, right, you're not truly selling. You're order taking, right? You know, what was Jordan's career, percentage, his shot percentage? Was it 90%? No, then he'd be, yeah. Then anyone who's like the best baseball players, the best basketball players, like 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10 is more like real world
Four out of
statistics
10 is
where.
crazy for baseball. The shot percentage for basketball, even half of the shots someone takes is crazy. So, uh,
Exactly.
yeah,
So what happens when you start trying to like achieve perfection from the academic world in the real world? What happens when you're trying to do that in the business world? What happens when you're trying to do that in the startup world? It doesn't exist, because then you start avoiding failures. And avoiding failures is a great way to stop learning, right? And that's something that, I've learned a lot from you, and your goals around empathy, like the goals around sharing and understanding and being vulnerable. Like, one thing I would have told my former self is to take more risks and be more okay with failure.
thank you for the nice compliment. I appreciate that. But I hear you, and I think that that's something that's part of the reason we are creating this platform, is to be able to provide that guidance, and that it's okay to take swings. And even taking a swing right now, leaving different roles that I've had in the past, to say, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. Why the hell not? I can always go back to the corporate world. I can always go back to sales leadership, commercialization, go to market strategy, whatever it might be, any title, any role. But life is too short to not take risks. So I love that you said that. That hits home to
Yeah.
me. Go
And
ahead.
just even jumping on, I don't know if I'm cutting out, but the same applies in a role. Like, taking risks in a role, even a corporate role, even a role, that's established, like, that's how you make it. That's how you achieve success in the role. That's how you separate yourself from your peers. I to be perfectly vulnerable, I might have suffered a little bit of that at 2Mogul, right? Because I was doing my thing, I was managing all the data partners, but could I have pushed myself a little bit more? I think 100%. And I think ultimately it's you know what's led to my pathway out of 2Mogul. So,
The, those years, those yeah, but that was also years ago, and learning and growing. Looking back, like that's the value, it's the benefit of understanding that it's a journey, that there's not a linear path, and that as you develop yourself and your confidence and your skill set, and the more you get smacked in the face in different ways, or in my case, just even right before this pod, being kind of red in the face from just being outside and balding to go get my son. Sometimes life just smacks you in the face, and you just jump back and you figure shit out.
yeah, that's right.
With that, Ishan, just tell me a little bit more about who some of your mentors are within this ecosystem, whether it's professional and or personal.
Yeah, most recently when I was coming off my failed startup, I think who took a chance on me in this new organization and was I think I consider him a mentor, even though I don't check in as much as I should. Andrew Feigenson. He was someone who was like, hey, I think Ishan has a lot to offer in this particular site space of the Martech world. And he was managing Simmons at that time. He was the CEO of Simmons and came off from Nielsen and was kind of a quote unquote turnaround CEO to the Simmons business to make sure that it grew in the eyes of its new acquirers. So Andrew's been really, at that point, was really someone who valued my input, even though I was, outside of the partnerships experience. Pulled me into a lot of meetings about strategy at the highest level. So and it's something like I really needed at that time because I was pretty licking my wounds from my failed startup. So most recently it's been Andrew. When it was at Microsoft, I can shout out Darren Morey. When I was at iBanker before my stint at business school, it was my manager, direct manager, John Slarzik. He really taught me about how to really work in a business and have really exacting standards as is the case in iBanking. So got a lot of that work ethic from someone like John. So yeah, a lot of folks a lot of folks really helped me out.
It's amazing, amazing. As you know, OhHello is going to be is integrated into approximately 50 different an ecosystem that has access to 50 plus different charitable causes. What are some causes that are near and dear to your heart?
I think anything that's like an education based cause is near and dear to my heart. You know, back okay, so back in 2015, I think it was 2015, I even tried to create a cause within the marketing tech, ad tech industry, along with a friend of mine, Ali, and he and I and a bunch of other leadership people, a lot of people on the board, wanted to create kind of like a pro bono model for the marketing world. I didn't think there was one available. You all know about pro bono from maybe lawyers or other kind of professional services, and they're what they're doing is they're taking their expertise that they charge at a very high rate and offering it for people who can't afford it, right? And I said, wouldn't it be great if we did something like that in marketing? And we built this, 501c3 called Chief Good. And since then, it's kind of fallen by the wayside. But I feel like the concept of pro bono should be in more industries, and I'm welcoming to get that band back together again. So the idea of doing what we do, which is ad serving, partnerships, marketing services, but doing it for charities, for doing it for
Awesome.
those that don't have the expertise, nor do they have the budgets. So what we did is we had a three-pronged stool. We had people that had expertise helping out with people who built ads for charities, and then we had donated inventory from the publishers. And that donated inventory could have been is written off as tax write-offs. So instead of giving someone the bottom of the bottom of the list inventory that turns into like the worst belly fat ads, you would give it to a charity. That charity would then get someone from the Pratt School of Design to add to their portfolio a high quality ad for that particular not for profit. And so that was a great three-legged stool that worked for about I think a year and a half, and then I think Ollie got really busy with his with his family, and I moved on to other things.
Well, there's always time to do it again. You've got
That's
time.
right.
This is so good to have you, Ishan. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being part of the OhHello community. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. I would do anything for you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Ishan. Thanks, everybody. Till next time.